As the episode opens, we're immediately dropped into the eerie town of Kyorazucho, where a high school student, Kiri Gashima, is walking home. Then there is another transition to the inside of a bus station. There is a young man, Shuichi Sato, whom she greets with "Welcome home." Then, while walking through a deserted alleyway, Shuichi asks Kiri if she would want to leave town with him, and when Kiri calls it a runaway, he pushes the issue by telling her again that she feels nothing. Then a scene where the young couple is walking by the sea, and Shuichi tells her that he senses an increase in the spirals and how the wind swirls strangely as well. He states that his father has been holed up at his studio staring at spirals. There is an uncomfortable family dinner scene where Shuichi's father is upset that there isn't the right amount of fish cake in his miso soup, and then we transition to Shuichi's father in the bathtub, creating whirlpools with his hands before they spill over. After seeing him staring wide-eyed at a mirror, Shuichi speaks to Kiri and explains how these eyes spin and move oddly as he watches all the spirals around him. Kiri arrives home, greeted by her mother, and then we meet Shuichi's dad again. The man is in his ceramics studio and mentions that he has been working with spirals that day. Then he asks if she would want to see his work in a weirdly flirtatious manner. Then, the main horror element starts to really hit us as a close-up of Shuichi's father's face is shown, and we see both of his eyes start to spin in different directions, as he calls the spirals art and starts to speak about them, using the word Uzumaki, which she now notices, as the sound design starts to unsettle us, followed by a dark shift. As Kiri and Shuichi are walking by their homes, Kiri then asks Shuichi if he feels okay, and Shuichi mentions how everything is spiraling lately, and how his dad has locked himself in his study. As they are talking, it starts to rain, and Shuichi looks to Kiri and mentions how his dad looks at spirals all day, and that he thinks his dad is going crazy because of the town itself. Shuichi turns to her and asks her if she doesn't feel it, and her answer isn't shown. Then we cut to several locations within the town, where the rain starts to pick up and become a black ink color. As they are talking, it becomes apparent that something is very wrong, and he mentions how his eyes start to spin when he looks at spirals. He tells her that his dad doesn't come to work anymore and stays in his studio all day. All the while, he's talking about how he knows the power of the swirl and how the town is obsessed with the power of the swirl. And as he says this, his eyes begin to spin unnaturally as he grins menacingly, and we finally understand that the town itself is also starting to turn into the spirals. At their house, the father tells the story of the swirl as he starts to show Kiri his art as the sounds of spirals intensify. Now, in another scene, Shuichi then tries to tell Kiri again how his dad's eyes rotate and it makes him uneasy, and Kiri responds with, "What is that about?" As they are walking, he says that his dad now locks himself away and is only looking at swirls. Then, the camera moves to a wooden bridge where water is rushing below with swirly patterns. The camera zooms in and the show's title, Uzumaki, pops onto screen and gets distorted. We see a train passing as Shuichi is shown looking at it intently, and Kiri calls out to him, and then the scene is changed, and Kiri and Shuichi are walking down the street. Shuichi says, "Lately, there seems to be a lot of swirls," and Kiri simply responds that she knows. Shuichi then mentions the wind starts to act weird with swirls forming in the patterns of the wind itself. Shuichi goes on to say that ever since his dad started acting weird, it is all because of this town. Then Shuichi's dad is shown again, and he is now staring at a spiral artifact. Then his eyes become wide, and his eyes begin to spin. Then the scene changes again, and we get a look at them walking in their town again, this time a more sinister tone, as Shuichi notes that recently there have been a lot of Uzumaki. He also says how even the wind is swirling oddly. Then he goes on to talk about how his father's recent change of behavior is due to the town itself. Thanks for tuning in. Stay curious, stay awesome, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more amazing content.